Hey guys, it's Jessie and welcome back to my channel and welcome back to the second video I'm doing on the new Beauty Bay palette. So yesterday, if you saw yesterday's video, if not I'll link it up here, I did my first impressions of the, where's it gone, I can pull it out, the Beauty Bay Midnight palette. So I did a swatches and a look with this one and I shared my thoughts, and today I'm going to be doing basically the same thing with the Earthy palette. I'm also going to be doing a swatch comparison to some of the shades in the Wilderness. Obviously I only have the 9 pan, so it's not going to compare fully, but there's also a 10 I believe and 42 pan version. So this, I initially got these because I didn't know whether it was going to be the same formula as the formula that I love, but from the other palette it seems like it is the same formula. So this is the Earthy palette and this is just what it looks like here. So it's got some really gorgeous greens in there. Just going to pull off the like mirror protector and stuff. So in comparison to the Wilderness, this is what it looks like. So obviously it's much more of just the greens than the Wilderness has, obviously blues and reds as well. But in the big Earthy palette there is a lot more of a kind of comparable colour story. But I am just going to swatch out the Earthy palette first, and then I'm going to see if I can find any kind of comparable swatches in the Wilderness palette, because some of the shades do have the same names. So I will be interested to see if they are dupes. They do look pretty similar just from looking now. But without further ado, I am going to get into the swatches. So just going to go row by row and just swatch them here on my arm. So firstly we have the shade Trance, which is a light kind of matte green. My camera's not the best for focusing, so please, hopefully it will work okay. But here is the first shade. So that is just one swatch, and I will do a couple more just to build it up. So this is what it's looking like after 3 kind of swatches or so. My camera won't focus, I literally don't know why. There you go, hopefully that's a little bit better, you can actually see now. Then the second shade we have is Moss. This feels kind of very shimmery, that feels very pretty. I definitely think it is similar to their kind of wet formula like with the other palette. Yeah, that's really pretty. It's not quite their like putty formula, but I think they've got a few different formulas. There's ones that are kind of quite putty and wet, and then others that are kind of middle, and then ones that are more metallic. I definitely think that's more of a middle one. And then we have the shade Apple to finish off the top row, which is just kind of a classic green shade. And swatched out, that is what that one looks like there. So that is just one swatch, so that's pretty pigmented, which is nice. I'm going to go in just one more time just to build it up a little bit more. So that's just 2 swatches there. So next up we have the shade Pixie, which I don't think is really a dupe for the Wilderness, but that is what this one looks like here. And swatched out, that is just what that one looks like there. So I definitely think that's their kind of more, again, metallic formula rather than the kind of wet shimmer, but it still looks really gorgeous. Then we have the shade Pixie, which is kind of a mid-tone green, maybe slightly darker than mid-tone, but not like too deep or anything. And swatched out, that is just what that one looks like there. And then going in again, you can just see the shade there. So again, another pretty green shade. Next up we have the shade Ray, which I do think potentially looks like it could be a dupe for the Ray shade in the Wilderness, because that is just such a gorgeous like duochrome green to kind of gold, and that's what this one looks like. So it definitely feels super like the putty formula. So that's what that one looks like there. I do have a little bit of the green left on my finger, so it looks a little bit darker there, but that is just what that one looks like swatched out. Really gorgeous, definitely their kind of classic putty formula. I love the way that that looks, so reflective, so pretty. There you go, you can kind of see. I'll show you a better close-up in a little bit. Then we have the shade Eucalyptus, which is just kind of a mossy matte green, kind of like more of a grungy green. So that's definitely got some brown in it. That's a really nice shade. I'm going to go in again with another swatch just so you guys can see properly what that one looks like. Again, ignore the quality of my swatches, they're not the best, but we're just going to move with it. Then we have the shade Lime, which again feels very much like their, oh that's pretty, that feels like the shade in the Wilderness palette. And that is what Lime looks like there, super reflective, really pretty there. And then lastly we have the shade Pickle, which you can see Eucalyptus underneath, so sorry if that kind of messes up with it a bit, but I'll go in with a kind of a clean finger as well. So that is what the shade Pickle looks like. So here is the Earthy 9-pan palette swatched out. There you go, now you can actually see the shades. So we've got these two here, which I think are definitely their kind of really popular reflective formula, and these two shimmers here, which are more of the metallic formula. So yeah, really happy with that one. And this is what the palette is looking like now. So you can see there's a little bit of kind of disturbance in the pan there. I'm going to quickly wash my hands and see if I can find some kind of swatch comparisons for the Wilderness palette. Okay, so firstly I want to compare the shades that have the same name. So firstly we have Moss, which is this shimmer up here. And the shade Moss in the Beauty Bay palette is definitely more of a putty formula, but I'll just swatch it next to it. You can't really see too well. I'll do it kind of around here, but there's just a little swatch of Moss there. So obviously I don't want to kind of cover my arm in swatches, but that is just the shade Moss there in comparison to that one. So they do look very, very similar. Definitely think they would be dupes of each other. Then we have the shade Ray, which is the other shimmer that I mentioned that was kind of the gold one. So that's what the one from the Wilderness palette looks like. So that's what the shade looks like there. And then swatched next to Ray down here, you can just see it there. So I definitely think the one from the Wilderness has a bit more of a kind of sparkle to it, a bit more of a sheer base, but still a really, really pretty shade nonetheless. And then we have the shade Eucalyptus, which is also in the Wilderness palette. So swatched out next to it again here. There you go, you can see the two there. I definitely think the one in the Wilderness is a bit darker, but overall they're very, very similar. And then lastly, for the exact matches, we have the shade Lime, which is the kind of green shimmer here. And so comparing those two, that is those two compared there. So yeah, again, you can see they're definitely the same shades basically. So now I don't know if there's any others that are similar. I guess Leaf might be kind of similar to the shade here, but yeah, that's more of, okay, yeah, they're not alike at all. There's obviously more of a kind of mustard green, and that was a kind of bright green. And then the other shades, maybe Breeze could be similar. That's more blue though to this one here. I mean, they're kind of similar. Actually, I'd say they're decently similar. Breeze is this one here, and it's got much more blue in it, but there is a similarity. So, I mean, they are similar. I'll pop Ivy just next to this one, because just for the sake of having something swatched there. And then for the last one, I guess I can put Forest there from the Wilderness again. There we go. I think that's the best we're going to do for swatch comparisons to the Wilderness. So on the bottom we've got Earthy 9-pan, then on the top we've got Wilderness. So you've definitely got some exact matches, but not entirely like dupes the whole palette. So if you have Wilderness, you probably don't need it unless you really like greens. But if you didn't get Wilderness, I definitely think this one and probably the bigger palettes have more dupes. So I would definitely recommend if you are wanting the Wilderness palette but you didn't get a chance to get it. Okay, so now I'm just going to pin my hair back and have a think about what I want to do. So I think I might just do, I'm not sure because I have got work later, so I don't want it to be too dramatic. I'm not sure how Ray would look on the lid. I don't know whether that would be kind of too light. Maybe not actually. Maybe I could kind of layer it on top of a matte green. That might be quite nice. So I am just going to get straight into it basically. I've already set my eyes. So I'm going to grab a fluffy brush and just go straight in with Trance here. I'm going to actually zoom you in a little bit more just so you can see even better. So I'm going to go in with Trance and I'm just going to pop that all throughout the crease. I'm using an older brush today because I don't have many clean brushes left, so if it looks slightly off, that could be why. It also could just be my lack of makeup talent. As I mentioned in my last video, these palettes are just £6.50 on Beauty Bay, so they are actually very cheap, which is good, and I will leave them linked in the description if you are interested. These are permanent parts of their collection, so I think they're basically replacing all the limited edition palettes that came out. They have the kind of green version, which is earthy, inspired by the Wilderness. They have Midnight, which I tested out yesterday, inspired by the Book of Magic, and they also have Berries, inspired by Neuromantic palette, but I'm not getting the Berries one just because I don't use my Neuromantic palette very much, so it's not really worth it for me. So next, I think I'm going to deepen it up with a bit of Pickle down here, the more kind of neutral grungy green colour. I'm just going to take that all throughout my crease. So no issues so far with the blending. I'm really happy with kind of how it's going. The shades seem very pigmented lid, again, just like yesterday, this is very much the kind of classic Beauty Bay formula that I'm a big fan of, so nothing to kind of report back so far. Everything seems to be going well. And I'm also going to be doing a relatively simple look today. I've got work later, so I don't want to go too crazy. I mean, I know I'm doing green, but I feel like green can be kind of reasonably neutral, I guess. I mean, maybe that's just me. That's definitely just me, to be fair, that thinks green can be neutral. So now I'm just going to dip into Eucalyptus, and I'm going to pop that in at the outer corner just to kind of deepen everything up. Okay, so now I'm just going to tap back into Trance just to kind of help blend that all together. Okay, so now I'm really not sure what I want to do. I like the look of lime, but I feel like that might just be way too kind of dramatic on the lid. I like, again, also Ray, but maybe I'll pop Ray as almost like a topper shade over a green. I don't know how well that would look. I think that could look quite nice. Just kind of testing it out on my hand. So I think I'm actually going to do that. So I'm going to grab into Pickle, I think. And I'm just going to, I'll just continue the blend quickly that little bit. So I'm going to go back in with Pickle, and I think I'm just going to actually go with just my finger and just pop this over the lid. And it's probably not the most conventional way to apply it. I don't know, I like to do all my lid stuff with my finger. Okay, so now that's all over my lid, I'm going to top it with Ray just to see how that looks. That's just how it looks alone rather than with a glitter glue. I think I want to put a glitter glue down just to make sure it's kind of getting its potential for the colour. Okay, so I'm now going to pop Ray on top of that. Okay, yeah, I definitely am a fan of how that looks. And I definitely think that shade kind of makes Ray pull a lot more green than it necessarily does in the pan, if you can kind of see. But I'm just going to go in and do the same thing on the other eye, and then hop in with the glitter glue again. Okay, so overall I'm actually really happy with how that looks. Obviously it's a little bit messy at the moment. But I do think I just need to kind of tidy up the edges. So I'm going to basically do my lower lash line now, and I think I want to use maybe one of the brighter colours, maybe do kind of like apple and then lime. I think that might be a little bit fun, just as a little kind of pop. So I'm going to grab a slanted brush and tap into apple on the lower lash line, and then go in with lime just on my little finger, and just kind of tap this on the front part of my lower lash line. Okay, so that is the lower lash line done. I think that's actually quite nice. It looks pretty. So I'm going to quickly kind of clean up my edges, do my mascara, and then be back with the finished look. Okay, so here is the final look. Overall, I'm actually very pleased with it. I think it looks really, really pretty. I had absolutely no issues with any of the mattes blending. The shimmers are, I think, the exact same Beauty Bay formula as I said for the last palette. So we have two of the really putty formulas and then two of the nice kind of shimmer metallic formulas. I don't want to point out I wouldn't have worn this lipstick normally, but I'm just trying to project pan it. But overall, I am really, really pleased with the look and this palette. I'm glad I picked it up. I think it would be a good kind of use in my collection, a really cute little 9 pan. I wouldn't have needed any of the bigger sizes, and also I technically didn't need this because overall, like in comparison to the Wilderness, I understand it is inspired by it, so that's the point, because you can't get the Wilderness anymore. But if you have the Wilderness, like this look, I could definitely get with the Wilderness, and I think any look with this palette you could probably get with the Wilderness. Maybe not if you use the really bright shades, but besides that, I mean, they are very, very similar. Like they've literally even got, I think it was 4 we found, complete duplicate shades. So did I need this because I have the Wilderness? No. But am I happy to have it as an addition to my collection? Yes. I'm really pleased with the quality. I think it's really nice color story as well. I often find sometimes smaller palettes aren't very cohesive, or they have duplicate shades, or I just don't love them. But here I think we've got a really, really good variety, so I'm very, very pleased with it. And yeah, I'm glad I've ended up picking these up. I would definitely recommend. Obviously, if you have the Wilderness, you don't need this if you're not wanting to get duplicate shades or anything like that. But overall, it's a cute palette and I definitely would recommend. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, don't forget to give it a like down below. Hit subscribe, turn on the bell to join a little club. Make sure you turn on all notifications, then you'll be notified every single time I post a new video. If you want to watch all my other videos, there'll be 2 on screen now to pick from, as well as a load linked up in the cards from earlier. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!